You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Recently, storms have been coming across the southern parts of the United States. I know there are more storms headed this way. Today, we're going to check in with Pastor Nathan Wendorf at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Harlingen, Texas. Pastor Wendorf, thanks for being our guest today on The Coffee Hour.
Thanks for having me.
Pastor, for those who are not familiar with Harlingen, paint a picture of the community for us, the location and then what the community is like.
Sure. Harlingen, Texas is located on the border of Mexico in the Rio Grande Valley, or we just affectionately call it the Valley. It's kind of situated between two larger cities of Brownsville to the east and McAllen to the west. And Harlingen has about 70,000 people. The Rio Grande Valley itself is about 1.2 million people that find their home here, although we have many people who join us up north in the wintertime for some beautiful weather that we have down here. Our community is 90% identifies as Latino or Hispanic, and it is the Harlingen-Brownsville metro area is considered the lowest socioeconomic metro area in the nation. About 35% of the people live below the federal poverty line. So a lot of need, a lot of work, and a lot of opportunities to proclaim the gospel.
So how have hurricanes impacted your community in the past?
The last major hurricane to hit our area was in 2008, was Hurricane Dolly. And that was a pretty major hurricane that kind of stalled over the community. So it dropped a lot of rain, a lot of flooding, a lot of wind damage. So this area kind of gets some hits pretty hard. It doesn't rain very often, but when it does, it all comes in once, whether that's a hurricane or like we've had the past 2 summers, a lot of flooding because of rain events. In fact, last year we had 15 inches of rain fall in 3.5 hours, if you can believe that, in one area that just overwhelmed the system. And so we've gotten used to dealing with lots of rain coming at once. But unfortunately, this last hurricane, the systems in place just allowed the water to flow out. So a lot of that flooding was prevented.
So tell us about how your congregation and your community were impacted by Hurricane Hanna.
Sure. Well, it was an interesting hurricane. It kind of, it hit us a little bit by surprise. We didn't think it was going to be a hurricane. Then all of a sudden it turned into a hurricane rather quickly as it moved across the Gulf of Mexico. As a congregation, it was interesting. Everybody was able to hunker down, get in place and shelter. Some of the interesting thing is a Category 1 hurricane when it finally made shore by Padre Island, not South Padre Islands, the city Padre Islands, the actual island in Kennedy County, which if there's any place in the nation that a hurricane can hit and do the least amount of damage, because there's only 404 people that live in Kennedy County. But when you know some of those people, those 404, doesn't matter how many it is, they're your friends, they're people of your congregation. So throughout the hurricane, as it's making landfall, we're texting to the people that live there and other people in our congregation, checking in on people, seeing how everybody's doing. And everybody weathered the storm pretty well. It was the hardest hit, I would have to say, are our farmers. We have a lot of farmers and ranchers who are also a part of our community. And the cotton crop has been completely destroyed. The sesame crop completely destroyed. So just talking with some of them last night, they're a little bit down in the dumps. Many of them have insurance, so that's good. But of course, you'd rather harvest all this work that you put into to making this to bring about that crop, and then not to have it there. Many of our people are still most of them are restored with power. However, I think I saw the last notification. There's still 30,000 people in the valley without electricity, which is hard because you're in a very hot area. You need the electricity just for the air conditioning. So that's kind of the main effect. Our congregation itself, our church campus was affected. We had some water get into the building. And actually a really cool story. In the midst of this hurricane, we have security cameras throughout our campus. And I got a notification from our DCE that the sanctuary door was open in the midst of the hurricane. This is about 10:30 at night. And it had been propped open. Like somehow it had blown open in the hurricane and it was stuck open and water's coming in. And so I'm trying to find somebody closer to church. Nobody's able to get out because the streets are getting flooded. So I get in my SUV and I'm able to make it to church campus, kind of navigate through places, trying to avoid the flooded areas, and get on the campus and realize that that door was propped open, be able to fix that, and then started to survey the campus. And we had a lot of water that had covered kind of half our sanctuary. One of our buildings had roof damages. Water got into our early childhood center and under kind of a lot of other doorways where it just had blown in. But yet a cool thing that happens in the midst of this. So I go back and I realize I'm going to spend the rest of my night at the church because it just would be safer than to go back out in the streets. And as I walk out to my car to get some more stuff, there's a man at the doorway who's huddled there and shivering in a raincoat, and he's got his bike, and you can see he's got a plastic bag that's filled with all his possessions. A man who is currently homeless by the name of Tony. And so of course I invited Tony to come in, and he's just so grateful, that he's coming out of this storm. He tried to seek shelter in just this little alcove we have, but wanted to get him in out of the storm because we're still in the hurricane, strong winds, a lot of rain coming down. And so Tony and I start talking, and so I spend the next all night with Tony, and in the midst of it, as I'm trying to use the shop vac, getting the water out of the church and other places that it had come in, Tony's like, "Where's the mopping bucket?" And he's like, "Let's find it. I'm going to help out here." And so he spent all the time mopping the floors of our sanctuary while I'm using the shop vac. And another one of our staff members, my associate, Pastor Mauricio, was able to make it into as well. And so he got another shop vac going, and we were able to, the three of us, get all the water out of the building by 5:30 in the morning. And of course, I told Tony to stop after a while because I realized, Tony's going to be going back out. He didn't want to stay very long. So I'm like, okay, you got to get some sleep. So you rest. We'll continue to work. And the next day I got to see Tony because Monday we were holding a food distribution for our community. We had 320 boxes of fresh produce, 18-pound boxes, along with 64 gallons of milk that we were distributing. And so Tony stopped by, and he just, he was just in tears, just so thankful. He's like, "You didn't have to open the door for me. You didn't have to open the door for me." And I said, I think God opened the door for you because I wouldn't have come back to the campus unless that door was propped open. And it was there. And so I came to secure it. And turns out there was another plan that God had in store for both of us that evening. And it wasn't just cleaning water. It was making a new friend. And so Tony and I got to visit some more Monday and just talk about that. And so he works through it. He works through it.
That's amazing. And how interesting. What a reflection, as you were sharing that story, how a relationship started with water.
Yeah. Always.
What a beautiful image there.
Right.
And how has the pandemic affected your recovery efforts? I know you mentioned it's been a while since a major hurricane has come through,
right.
But with stay-at-home orders and things like that, or social distancing,
sure.
How has that affected your recovery efforts? So
the article, I think, says it the best this morning that I saw, that where we are in the Rio Grande Valley, we are the hotspot of the hotspot of the hotspot right now.
Man.
I was like, okay, that's a great way to say it. Yesterday, the statistics for our county, we had 600 new COVID cases and another a bunch more deaths. We do have 6 refrigerator trucks, I understand, at the various hospitals that are storing the bodies. We're having to wait for over a week to do funerals right now. Crematoriums are over a week in terms of being able to perform the cremations. So we are very, very hard hit. I was in a conference call yesterday with a chaplain who is in one of our local hospitals, and he was just explaining just how quickly after Memorial Day we just got slammed. Our hospital system is slammed. It's overwhelmed. They're taking over city buildings now to be able to house COVID patients because there's no more place to put them. The U.S. Navy has sent in medical teams. We have a U.S. Navy team that's working on one of our floors, and we've had 200 those extra nurses who I can't remember the exact term they use for them, but have come in to our community. And so this has really hit us hard. In June, we had gone back to in-person worship in June, but come July, after Memorial Day and everything went through there, we had to shut back down meeting together in person and put a lot of different things in place because people are just having a hard time following the guidelines and being that way. And we've had in our congregation, I know at least 30 people with COVID. We have 2 in intensive care right now. And it breaks your heart because you can't talk to them. You can't get information out. And then at the same time, you're trying to respond in the, not just the COVID, but into the hurricane. And so the one way we found to be able to do that, to really meet a need, is to provide food. And we were already providing food because of COVID through partnership with the USDA program, Farmers to Families, which is coordinated through the White House and a local Valley Baptist retreat center that is kind of coordinating the efforts for our area, where we weekly or twice a week go with our trucks and pick up pallets of food, and then they're able to deliver that food as a distribution site on our campus. And so we continue to do that. So we got all the PPE stuff that we need for the people that distribute that, and have about 20 volunteers who show up each time we have a distribution and help with that to get that to the people who need it. Because when you lose your power during a hurricane, you lose all the food in your refrigerators. And so here you have a group of people who already are strapped for resources, and now you've lost everything in your refrigerator. So trying to get just the food and to them is one of the ways we're trying to respond in this moment to help out.
So how will St. Paul continue to share the good news of Jesus to the community? We have just about a minute and a half left.
Okay. We have the opportunity, for those food distributions, and at those food distributions, we've been able to give out the Lord's Mercy Endures Forever, 40 daily devotions of God's comfort through our disaster response teams, through the LCMS World Relief and Human Care. They have those great devotionals. And so we've been using those as a resource to share with people. I got to share it with my friend Tony, and we were just talking about Jesus and the gospel and how God's working through the midst of this all, and how his grace continues to shine through in the midst of what we're all experiencing. And so there's been some great ways to be able to do that, being able to deliver to families in our community too. It's not just coming to our campus, but going out to local apartment complexes just across the street and just kind of just showing us, hey, the church is here for you, and we're going to journey with you in the storm, after the storm, and in the days to come, because we don't just have the food of life, we've got the word of life, and we want to share that with you.
The Reverend Nathan Wendorf, St. Paul Lutheran Church, Harlingen, Texas. Pastor Wendorf, thanks so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today and giving us an update from Harlingen, Texas.
Thanks for having us.
You listen to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.